The fluorescent lights made her skin look even paler than I remembered. That's what I noticed first. The way my mother's hands trembled as she pushed the medication cart down the hallway, her shoulders hunched forward like she was carrying something far heavier than those little paper cups of pills. I stood there in the corridor of Meadowbrook Nursing Home, frozen, watching my 82-year-old mother work the night shift as a caregiver's aide. She didn't see me at first. I had come to visit Mrs. Patterson, one of my former clients from my social work days, bringing her some books she'd asked for. It was nearly 10 o'clock on a Tuesday night. The last person I expected to see was my mother, wearing a burgundy scrubs uniform with a name tag that read Margaret pinned crookedly to her chest. Margaret. My mother. Working. At 82. 6 months ago, she'd told me she was traveling, visiting friends in Florida, taking that cruise she'd always wanted. She'd seemed happy on our phone calls, busy, excited about her new life after Dad passed 3 years ago. She'd remarried a year after his death. Richard Thornton, a retired insurance executive she'd met at her book club. I'd been happy for her, relieved even. After 45 years of marriage, she'd found companionship again. But now, watching her struggle to open a residence door with arthritic hands, nothing made sense. "Mom?" She turned, and I saw her face go white. Actually white. Like someone had drained every drop of blood from her cheeks. The medication cart slipped from her grip and rolled a few inches down the hall. "Catherine." Her voice came out as barely a whisper. "What are you doing here?" "What am I doing here?" "Mom, what are you doing here? Why are you working? Where's Richard?" She looked around frantically, like she was checking to see if anyone was watching us. Her hands were shaking worse now. It's complicated, honey. I can't talk now. I'm on shift until 6 in the morning. 6 in the morning? I grabbed her arm gently, feeling how thin she'd gotten under that polyester uniform. She'd lost at least 20 pounds since I'd last seen her at Thanksgiving. "Mom, you're 82 years old. Where's the money Dad left you? What happened to your house?" The house. The beautiful 4-bedroom colonial in Portland, Maine that my parents had bought in 1975. The house Dad had paid off years ago. The house worth at least $600,000 in today's market. "Richard handled the sale," she said quietly, not meeting my eyes. There were expenses. Medical bills. His son had some business troubles. "It's fine, Catherine. Really. I just needed some extra income for now." "Extra income?" "Mom, you should be retired. You should be comfortable. Dad left you his pension, his life insurance, the house. Where did it all go?" "I told you, there were expenses." Her voice got defensive, the way it used to when I was a teenager questioning her decisions. "Richard is very smart about money. He's an insurance executive. He said this was the best way to handle things. I just need to work for a little while until his investments pay off." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. After 30 years as a social worker specializing in elder care, I knew the signs. I'd seen them 100 times in my clients. But seeing them in my own mother? "What investments, Mom?" "I don't know all the details. Richard handles our finances. He's much better at that sort of thing than I ever was." She picked up the medication cart again, tried to move past me. "I really need to finish my rounds, honey. Mrs. Chen in 304 needs her blood pressure medication. How much are they paying you here?" She hesitated. $14 an hour. $14 an hour. My mother, with my father's $120,000 life insurance policy, with his pension that should have been paying her $2,800 a month, with a house she'd lived in for nearly 50 years. "I'm picking you up when your shift ends," I said firmly. "We're going to breakfast, and you're going to tell me everything, Catherine." "I can't. Richard expects me home by 7 to make his breakfast." "Richard can make his own damn breakfast." She looked terrified, actually terrified. My mother, who'd raised 3 kids, who'd volunteered at the homeless shelter every Thanksgiving, who'd never been afraid of anything in her life. "Please don't make trouble," she whispered. "Richard gets upset when I'm late. His blood pressure, you know. The doctor said stress is very bad for him." I wanted to scream. Instead, I took a deep breath and channeled every bit of professional training I had. "Mom, I'll be back at 6 a.m. We're going to talk. That's not negotiable." She opened her mouth to protest, but something in my face must have stopped her. She just nodded, tears gathering in her eyes, and went back to her medication rounds. I spent the next 8 hours in my car in the parking lot, researching, making phone calls, pulling up public records on my laptop. What I found made my blood boil. The house, sold 14 months ago for $580,000. The deed had been signed by both my mother and Richard Thornton. But when I looked closer at the scanned documents, something felt off about my mother's signature. Too smooth. Too perfect. My mother's handwriting had always been slightly shaky, especially after her arthritis got worse. The pension, Dad's teacher's pension from 30 years with the Portland School District. I called a friend who worked in the benefits office. After some digging, she told me the direct deposit had been changed 8 months ago. It was now going to an account solely in Richard's name. The life insurance. I'd helped Mom file the claim when Dad died, $120,000. I had no idea where that money had gone. At 6 a.m., I watched my mother shuffle out of the nursing home, still wearing those burgundy scrubs. She looked 20 years older than she had at Thanksgiving. Exhausted didn't begin to cover it. "Where's your car?" I asked as she approached mine. Richard needed it. His car was in the shop. He drives me to work and picks me up. "How long have you been working here?" 3 months. 3 months of night shifts at 82 years old. While Richard drove around in her car, her 10-year-old Honda Civic that Dad had bought her, that was paid off and ran perfectly. We went to a diner downtown. I ordered coffee and eggs. Mom just wanted toast, said her stomach had been bothering her lately. "Mom, I need you to be completely honest with me. Where is the money from the house?" She stirred her coffee slowly, not drinking it. Richard said we needed to invest it. He put it into his son's business, a tech startup. Derek is very smart. Richard said we'd double our money within a year. Derek Thornton, Richard's son. Yes. He lives in Boston. He's developing some kind of app. I don't really understand it. And the life insurance money? That went into the investment too. Richard said it was important to have a substantial stake to see real returns. I closed my eyes. Every penny. My father's life savings. The house he'd worked 3 jobs to pay off. The life insurance he'd faithfully paid premiums on for 40 years. All of it, gone. "Mom, did you sign papers for this? Did you agree to invest the money?" Richard handled the paperwork. He said it was very complicated. All the legal documents. He'd just tell me where to sign and I'd sign. He was so patient about it, explaining that it was all routine, that this was how wealthy people managed their money. She finally looked at me. "I know you think I'm stupid, Catherine, but I trusted him. He married me. He said he loved me. Why would he hurt me?" The raw pain in her voice nearly broke me. "You're not stupid, Mom. You're being manipulated. What you're describing is financial abuse." "No." She shook her head firmly. "Richard wouldn't do that. He's very particular about money. He grew up poor, you know. He worries about security. That's why he's so careful about our finances." "Mom, you're working night shifts at $14 an hour. How is that financial security?" "It's temporary. Just until the investment pays off." Richard said it might take a little longer than expected, so I offered to get a job to help out, to show him I was a team player. She smiled weakly. He was so proud of me when I got hired at Meadowbrook. Proud of her. For getting exploited. "Where are you living now?" "With Richard and Derek. Derek moved in with us 6 months ago. He had some trouble with his apartment in Boston, something about his roommates. Richard thought it would be good for us to help him out. We're renting a 2-bedroom apartment in South Portland." "You're renting? You owned your house outright." "The apartment is much easier to maintain. No yard work or repairs to worry about." She was parroting his words. I could hear it in her tone. "Richard says at our age, we should be simplifying." "What happened to your furniture? Your things? Dad's workshop tools?" Her eyes got distant. "We had to downsize. The apartment is much smaller." Richard handled the estate sale. He said we got good prices for everything. Dad's tools. He'd been a craftsman, a Finnish carpenter. Those tools were worth thousands of dollars, irreplaceable. Some of them had belonged to his own father. "Did you see any money from the estate sale?" Richard put it aside for expenses. "What expenses, Mom?" "Rent, groceries, Derek's business costs. He's bootstrapping the company, you know. That means he's funding it himself without investors. Richard is so proud of him. She paused. Derek lives with us for free. Of course. To help him save money for the business. Let me get this straight. My mother was working night shifts at 82 to pay rent on an apartment where her husband's 40-year-old son lived for free while developing an app with her life savings. Mom, I need you to come stay with me. I can't do that. Why not? Richard needs me. He's 68 years old. He has high blood pressure and diabetes. I take care of him. I cook his meals, manage his medications, make sure he gets to his doctor appointments. Who takes care of you? She didn't answer that. Mom, when was the last time you went to the doctor? I don't know. A year ago? Maybe more. I've been meaning to make an appointment, but with work and taking care of Richard. You're working night shifts and taking care of him during the day? When do you sleep? I manage a few hours here and there. You know me. I've never needed much sleep. That was a lie. My mother had always needed her solid 8 hours. She used to get cranky if she was up past 10. I reached across the table and took her hand. Mom, this isn't normal. This isn't how people who love you should treat you. You're being exploited. You don't understand. Richard is very good to me. He just has a lot of stress right now. The investment, Derek's business, his health problems. He gets overwhelmed sometimes. What do you mean, overwhelmed? She pulled her hand back, wrapped both hands around her coffee cup. He gets frustrated. He doesn't mean anything by it. He apologizes afterward. Apologizes for what? Nothing. I'm making it sound worse than it is. She checked her watch. I really should get home. He'll wonder where I am. You don't have a phone? I do, but it's been acting up lately. Richard said I must have broken it somehow, so I've been managing without one until we can afford to fix it. She hadn't broken it. I'd bet everything I owned that Richard had taken it from her. Another control tactic. Isolation. Mom, I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Has Richard ever hurt you? Physically? Of course not. He would never. But her eyes slid away from mine. Mom, he just grabbed my arm once when I burnt his dinner. He didn't mean to leave a bruise. He was just frustrated. His blood sugar was low. I felt rage like I hadn't felt in years. Pure, white-hot fury. But I couldn't show it. Not yet. If I scared her, she'd run back to him. I'd seen it 100 times in my career. Victims defending their abusers. It was textbook trauma bonding. Okay, I said gently. I understand. But Mom, I need you to do something for me. Just one thing. What? Let me look at the investment documents. The papers you signed for Derek's business. Just so I can understand what Richard was explaining to you. I know you trust him, but humor me. You know, I spent my whole career helping seniors with financial planning. Let me take a look, just so I can understand. She hesitated. Richard keeps all our important papers in a safe. Do you have the combination? No. He says it's better if he manages all the security codes and passwords. One less thing for me to worry about. Of course he did. Are there any papers at the apartment? Bank statements, bills, anything. Richard handles all of that online. He says paperless is better for the environment. Every avenue cut off. Every line of communication controlled. Classic financial abuse. Mom, I'm going to drive you home. I need to meet Richard. No. Her alarm was immediate. He doesn't like surprises, and he's not good in the mornings before his coffee. Please, Catherine, don't make trouble. Everything is fine. I promise. Everything is not fine. But okay, I won't come in. I'll drop you off. But I'm going to come visit you tomorrow. During the day, when Richard is awake and calm. Can you arrange that? She nodded reluctantly. I drove her to the address she gave me, a run-down apartment complex in South Portland, the kind with paper-thin walls and cars on blocks in the parking lot. My mother, who'd lived in a beautiful home for 50 years, was living here. What time should I come tomorrow? 2:00. Richard usually naps after lunch. Of course he did. After my mother made him lunch, cleaned up, and got him settled, I watched her walk up the stairs to apartment 2C, moving slowly like every bone hurt. When she reached the door, a man opened it before she could get her key out. Mid-60s, tall, thick around the middle. He looked angry. Richard Thornton. He pulled her inside and shut the door hard. I sat in my car, shaking. Then I made a phone call. My best friend from college, Lisa Martinez, was an assistant district attorney specializing in elder fraud. We'd kept in touch over the years, trading war stories about the cases we couldn't save, celebrating the ones we could. "Lisa? It's Catherine. I need your help. It's my mother." Over the next 24 hours, I barely slept. I went home and pulled out every document I had from Dad's estate. Every piece of paper Mom had signed, every check that had been written. I cross-referenced public records, court documents, property transfers. The picture that emerged was worse than I'd imagined. Richard Thornton had married my mother exactly 3 months after meeting her. The marriage certificate was dated 13 months after Dad's death. 1 month later, he'd been added to her bank accounts. 2 months after that, the house had been sold. But here's what made my blood run cold. When I looked at the signature on the deed transfer, it looked nothing like my mother's signature on her marriage license. Different slant, different pressure, different loops on the letters. Richard Thornton had forged her name. I pulled up Derek Thornton's records next. 42 years old, 3 bankruptcies, multiple court judgments against him for unpaid debts. A restraining order from a previous business partner who claimed Derek had embezzled from their company. The tech startup? It didn't exist. I searched every business registry, every incorporation record, every startup database I could find. Derek Thornton had no registered business, no LLC, no corporate entity, nothing. The money was just gone. Stolen. Lisa called me back at 3 a.m. "Catherine, I did some digging. Richard Thornton? He's got a record. Fraud charges in Connecticut 12 years ago. They were dropped due to lack of evidence, but the victim was a 73-year-old widow he'd married and divorced within 18 months. She claimed he'd taken her for over $300,000. He's done this before. Multiple times, according to the detective I talked to. He finds widows through bereavement groups, book clubs, church socials. He's charming, attentive, moves fast, marries them, gets access to their assets, cleans them out, then either disappears or makes their lives so miserable they're afraid to report him. Can we prosecute? If we can prove the signatures were forged, yes, I'm going to need the original documents. And Catherine? Lisa's voice got softer. We're going to need your mother to cooperate, to testify. Can she do that? I don't know. She's terrified of him. Then we make her more afraid of losing you. Because that's what he'll do next. He'll try to isolate her completely from you. It's part of the pattern. At 2 o'clock the next afternoon, I knocked on apartment 2C. Richard Thornton answered. Up close, I could see the calculation in his eyes, the way he sized me up in 3 seconds flat, deciding how to play me. "You must be Catherine. Margaret has told me so much about you." His smile was warm, practiced. "Please, come in." The apartment was small, dingy. My mother's antique furniture was nowhere in sight. Everything was cheap, mismatched, the kind of stuff you buy at discount stores. Mom was in the kitchen, cooking something on the stove. She looked exhausted. "Smells wonderful, honey," Richard called to her. Then, lower. "To me, your mother is an amazing cook. I'm very lucky." Derek emerged from one of the bedrooms, younger than I expected, dressed in wrinkled clothes, eyes glued to his phone. "Derek, this is Margaret's daughter, Catherine." Derek grunted, didn't look up, headed to the kitchen. "When's lunch ready? I'm starving." I watched my mother jump slightly, then hurry to plate the food. We sat at the small dining table. Richard dominated the conversation, telling stories about his career in insurance, dropping names of companies I later confirmed he'd never worked for. He was smooth, I'd give him that, charismatic, funny. The kind of man you'd trust instinctively, which made him all the more dangerous. "Mom mentioned she's been working at Meadowbrook," I said casually. "That must keep her busy." "Oh, that!" Richard waved a hand dismissively. "I told her she didn't need to work, but you know Margaret, stubborn as a mule. She insisted she wanted to feel useful." My mother's eyes stayed on her plate. "It's just temporary, of course," Richard continued. "Until Derek's business takes off. We're expecting the app to launch next month. We've already got interest from several major investors." "Really? What's the app called?" Derek looked up from his phone for the first time. "It's still in stealth mode. We can't reveal details yet. Of course, I said smoothly. So, Richard, Mom mentioned you invested the proceeds from the house sale into Derek's business? Among other things. Diversified portfolio. Very important at our age. He smiled at my mother. I've been teaching Margaret about wealth management. She'd never had to think about these things before. Your father, bless him, wasn't much of a businessman. My father had successfully managed his money for 45 years, raised 3 kids, put them through college, and died leaving a comfortable nest egg. But I bit my tongue. I'd love to see the investment documents. Just out of curiosity, I did some work with financial planning in my social work career. Richard's smile tightened slightly. Oh, all that's in my office. Very boring stuff, really. Lots of legal jargon. I don't mind. Richard's very private about his business affairs, my mother said quickly, her voice nervous. It's nothing personal, Catherine. He's just very professional that way. It's actually quite personal when it's my mother's life savings, I said pleasantly. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Richard stood up. I think it's time for my nap. Margaret, dear, could you get my pills? She jumped up immediately, scurrying to get his medication. I stood too. Mom, can I talk to you in the kitchen for a minute? Actually, Richard said, his voice harder now, Margaret needs to help me to bed. Her back hurts. She's been very tired lately. Maybe you should come back another time, Catherine. I'm not leaving without talking to my mother privately. This is my home. I decide who stays and who goes. It's my mother's home too. Actually, Richard said, smiling coldly now, it's my apartment. The lease is in my name only, and I'm asking you to leave. My mother looked like she was going to cry. Mom, you're coming with me. Right now. We're going to pack your things and you're leaving. She's not going anywhere, Richard said flatly. Yes, she is. She's a grown woman. She can make her own decisions. Richard moved closer to my mother, put his hand on her shoulder. Possessive, threatening. Tell her, Margaret. Tell her you want to stay. My mother's voice came out small, broken. I want to stay. No, you don't. You're afraid of him. I'm not afraid. But her eyes betrayed her. Mom, he's stolen from you. He forged your name on documents. He's controlling every aspect of your life. This is abuse. You don't know what you're talking about. Richard's voice was venomous now, the mask slipping. Your mother is confused. She's getting older. Sometimes she forgets things. Isn't that right, Margaret? You've been having memory problems lately. No, I said sharply. She hasn't. That's what you've been telling her to make her doubt herself. It's called gaslighting. I think you need to leave now. Richard moved toward me, and I saw something in his posture that made my social worker instincts scream. This man was capable of violence, but so was I, if it meant protecting my mother. I'm going, I said. But Mom, I'm leaving my phone number on the counter. Anytime, day or night, you call me. I'll come get you, no questions asked. She won't need to call you, Richard said. Everything here is just fine. I looked at my mother one more time. She was crying silently, still frozen in place under Richard's hand. I love you, Mom. I'm not giving up on you. I walked out, but not to my car. I walked down to the parking lot, then circled back and positioned myself where I could see the apartment window. 10 minutes later, I heard shouting. Richard's voice, loud and angry. Something crashed. My mother's voice, pleading. I called the police. When they arrived, Richard was all smiles again. Charming, confused, concerned. My wife's daughter has some strange ideas. My wife is fine. Tell them, Margaret. My mother, shaking, said she was fine. The police couldn't do anything. No visible injuries, no immediate danger. They left. But one of the officers, an older woman named Santos, slipped me her card. I've seen this before. Your mother's in trouble. If you can get her to press charges, we can help. Otherwise, our hands are tied. That night, I met with Lisa and laid out everything I had. The forged signatures, Richard's history, the timeline of the asset theft. It's good, Lisa said. But we need more. We need bank records showing where the money went. We need the original investment documents that don't exist. And we need your mother to cooperate. She won't. She's too scared. Then we need to make it impossible for Richard to keep her isolated. We need to document everything, every interaction, every phone call, build a case that even without her cooperation, we can prove criminal conduct. Over the next 2 weeks, I became a private investigator. I talked to Mom's neighbors in her old house. They remembered Richard moving in quickly, starting to sell off her furniture. They remembered her becoming withdrawn, stopping her volunteer work, missing her regular book club meetings. I contacted Meadowbrook Nursing Home. The administrator, when I explained the situation, was horrified. She pulled Mom's employment records. Mom was being paid in cash under the table. No taxes withheld, no employment contract, completely illegal. I tracked down the realtor who'd handled the house sale. She remembered something odd about the closing. Richard had insisted my mother was ill, couldn't attend the signing. He'd brought the signed documents with him. At the time, it hadn't seemed suspicious. I found the estate sale company Richard had hired to sell my parents' belongings. They'd paid him $8,000 for everything, furniture worth $20,000, tools worth another $10,000. He'd sold it all for pennies on the dollar and pocketed the cash. Every day, I called my mother at Meadowbrook during her shift. Short calls, just to hear her voice. She was always exhausted, always worried, always making excuses for Richard. Then, 3 weeks after my first visit, she called me. It was 2 a.m. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Catherine, I need help." "Where are you?" "The apartment." "Richard's asleep. I'm in the bathroom. I don't have much time." "What happened?" "He hit me." Her voice broke. "He's been getting worse. Angrier. He found out I've been talking to you at work. He said if I ever speak to you again, he'll have me committed. He said he'll tell them I have dementia, that I'm not competent, that I'm a danger to myself," he said, with his insurance background. "He knows exactly how to get me locked away." "Mom, you need to leave, right now." "I can't. He keeps my purse locked in his safe. My ID, my social security card, everything. I don't have anything. You have me. Just walk out. I'll come get you right now." "I'm so ashamed," she was crying. "You were right. About everything. I've been so stupid." "You're not stupid. You're a victim. There's a difference. Can you leave without him hearing you?" "I think so. But Catherine, he'll come after me. He said if I ever try to leave, he'll make sure I regret it. He said he has connections, that he can make problems for you, for your brothers, for all of us." "He's bluffing. Those are just threats to control you. Mom, please, just walk out the door. I don't even have shoes. Just these old slippers." "I don't care. I'll buy you new shoes. Please, Mom." There was a long silence. Then, Okay, I'm coming. I'm at..." The phone went dead. I tried calling back. No answer. Straight to voicemail. I grabbed my keys, already running for my car. I broke every speed limit getting to South Portland. When I pulled into the apartment complex, I saw my mother sitting on the curb outside the building, wearing a thin nightgown and slippers, shivering in the November cold. I'd never moved faster in my life. She collapsed into my arms, sobbing. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "You have nothing to be sorry for. Let's get you out of here." As I helped her into my car, I saw a light go on in apartment 2C. Richard, in the window, watching us. He raised his phone to his ear. I didn't care. I drove away, my mother safe beside me. We went straight to the police station. Officer Santos was working the night shift. When she saw my mother's face, swollen from crying, a fresh bruise on her arm, she didn't hesitate. "Let's get your statement, and then we're getting you to a safe place." My mother told her everything, every detail, every manipulation, every theft. Santos recorded it all. "The problem," Santos explained, "is that proving financial exploitation of an elder is complicated. We'll need to build a case. That takes time. And in the meantime, Richard Thornton is going to be angry." "I know," I said. "That's why Mom's staying with me. And I've already contacted an attorney about getting a restraining order." What I didn't expect was how fast things would move after that. Lisa, using Mom's statement and the evidence I'd gathered, got a warrant for Richard's financial records. What they found was staggering. Richard Thornton had stolen over $700,000 from my mother, the house sale proceeds, the life insurance, the pension payments he'd redirected. All of it had gone into various accounts under his and Derek's names. Derek's tech startup? It was a bank account in the Cayman Islands. No business, no app, no investors. Just a place to hide stolen money. But here's what made the prosecutors sit up and take notice. Richard and Derek had done this before. 5 times before. 5 widows across 3 states. They'd stolen over $2 million in the past decade. They were running a sophisticated elder fraud operation. Richard would romance lonely widows, marry them quickly, gain access to their assets, and systematically drain them. Derek would pose as a struggling entrepreneur who needed just one more investment to make it big. And when the money ran out, they'd either abandon the woman or, in my mother's case, turn her into an unpaid servant while they looked for the next victim. The FBI got involved. Financial crimes, wire fraud, forging government documents. The charges piled up. 3 months after my mother called me from that bathroom, Richard Thornton and Derek Thornton were arrested. The trial was brutal. My mother had to testify, had to relive every moment of manipulation and abuse. Richard's defense attorney tried to paint her as a confused old woman who'd willingly given away her money and now regretted it. But we had the forged signatures, we had the other victims, we had the money trail. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Richard Thornton, 18 years in federal prison. Elder abuse, fraud, forgery, theft. Derek Thornton, 12 years. Conspiracy, wire fraud, money laundering. When the verdict came in, my mother squeezed my hand so hard I thought she'd break my fingers. "Is it really over?" she whispered. "It's really over." The restitution process took another year. The government seized Richard and Derek's assets, what little they had. We recovered about $300,000. Not everything, but enough that Mom wouldn't have to work again. Enough that she could be comfortable. She moved into my guest room temporarily, which turned into permanently. We had it coming. We both liked the company. She started going back to her book club, reconnected with old friends, started seeing a therapist who specialized in trauma. The nightmares faded. The shame lifted. Slowly. She started to smile again, to laugh at my terrible jokes, to be the mother I remembered. One morning, about 18 months after that night, I found her at Meadowbrook. We were having coffee in my kitchen. The sun was coming through the window, warm and bright. "You know what I regret most?" she said suddenly. "What, Mom?" "That I didn't tell you sooner. That I let my pride and my shame keep me from asking for help. I thought I could handle it. I thought I deserved it somehow, for being foolish enough to trust him. You didn't deserve any of it. You wanted to believe the best in someone. That's not foolish. That's human. All those years you worked with seniors, helping them with these exact situations, and I thought I was too smart to fall for it." She shook her head. "The arrogance of that. It's not arrogance. Abusers are skilled. They know exactly what to say, what to do. They're predators, Mom. They study their victims. You didn't fail. He was just very good at what he did. I just wish I could tell other women. Warn them somehow, so they don't go through what I went through." "You can," I said. "Lisa's been asking if you'd be willing to speak to senior groups about financial abuse. Share your story. Help people recognize the warning signs." She thought about that for a long moment. "I think I'd like that, to make something good come out of this nightmare." Now, she speaks at community centers, senior centers, anywhere that will have her. She talks about the red flags she missed, the rush to get married, the immediate financial entanglement, the isolation from family, the way Richard made her doubt her own memory and judgment. She talks about the shame that kept her silent, the fear that kept her trapped. And she always ends the same way. If you see someone you love making decisions that don't make sense, if they're cutting off contact, if they're struggling financially when they shouldn't be, please don't assume they're just getting old or making bad choices. Consider that they might be being exploited. Reach out, ask questions, be persistent, because the people who abuse elders count on everyone else looking away. Last month, after one of her talks, a woman in her 70s approached her. "Your story just saved my life," she said, crying. "I've been dating a man for 6 months who's been asking me to invest in his son's business. I was going to give him $20,000 next week. Everything you described, the rush, the financial pressure, the isolation tactics, it's all happening to me. Mom held that woman's hand while she called her daughter, while she made a plan to end that relationship, while she took back control of her life. That's why I do this, Mom told me later. If I can save even one person from what I went through, it was all worth it. She's 73 now, thriving, volunteering again, taking art classes, living. Sometimes I still think about that night I found her at Meadowbrook, pushing that medication cart, exhausted and ashamed and trapped. And I think about how close we came to losing her completely. But I also think about how strong she is, how she found the courage to make that 2 a.m. phone call, how she walked out of that apartment in her nightgown with nothing but the will to save herself. She survived. And now she's making sure others can too. That's not a victim. That's a warrior. And I've never been more proud to be her daughter.